Hi there. Welcome to Secret Places in the Open Air. I'm your host, Ivan Taprod. I'd like to tell you about a remarkable woman from my own life, the lovely Carolina, the love of my life, who I married and who eventually I divorced. She taught me to be a practical man. She tamed me, made me give up my Hollywood dreams, made me settle down. I call her the love of my life because, in a way, it is true. But there was another woman before her, an unrequited love, the beautiful Alexandria, who I adored. I met Alexandria on the set of Fry Cooks, a pilot series that never aired. I was Curly, the flapjack flipper, one of the stars of the show. She was Tara the waitress. She never had many lines, but she looked great. The cameras loved her, and she was always sexy and fine. She latched onto me like I was happening, like I knew what was going on. In those days, I had connections. I had money in my pocket, and I knew the best parties in town. It was a useful arrangement. She made me look good, and I brought her to places where she could make connections that would further her ambitions. It's amazing how attractive you become to women at a party when you arrive with a beautiful woman at your side. I loved those days. Everywhere I went, I was surrounded by beautiful women, and I felt exhilarated and alive. She, of course, was surrounded by men, and that's what she was looking for. Powerful men who could move the world for her. I made the mistake of falling in love with her. Then I compounded my error by believing in my own power as an actor, by believing that I could win her over with emotional expression and words. "When you play with love," I said, repeating the line I had rehearsed so many times, "you play with the procreative powers of the universe. You are the possessor of the power of Eros, and yet your possession is only for a moment. The powers of the immortals do not belong to you. They are only alone for an instant in time." It was the greatest speech I had ever spoken as an actor. She looked at me kind of baffled. "You say that your what hurts?" I answered her question with another well-rehearsed line. "I am an actor. I can make people laugh, and I can make people cry. I, too, am for the moment possessed by the procreative powers of the universe. Eros, too, abides in me." I then proposed that we become true lovers, that we allow ourselves to be caught up in one another and join forces to conquer the world. She, as I'm sure you know by now, rejected me. I was too self-revealing, too sincere, too overwrought with emotions. Ironies of ironies, though the power to evoke passion was so much a part of her, she was nevertheless, by her nature, cold and calculating, an ambitious twister of people's emotions to her own ends. We parted ways amicably, as friends, then as acquaintances, then as people who referred to one another only now and then as somebody we once knew. I gave up my pitiful acting career and settled down with Carolina to become a salesman. Yet somehow I cannot help but believe that if things had been different, if Alexandria had loved me, that the same deities that bequeath to men madness and grace would have lent to me, for a moment, the power of Eros, the power of Shiva the Creator, the power of Shiva the Destroyer, and I would have become a great actor, a star, all for the sake of her love. I would have become the person who I, with all my heart, have always wanted to be. When I first get to know people, I like to ask them if they have ever experienced anything impossible, something that they cannot explain. Most people say no. One woman told me that she had poltergeists. Several people told me about psychic connections with their mothers. Then I met Carolina, the woman who became my wife. She told me that she was actually 47 years old, even though it was obvious that she was in her 20s at the time. She talked to me about waking up one morning surrounded by a ring of fire and pinned to her bed by a force field. This guy named Zanuck spoke to her with a deep, booming voice. "Soon you will be coming home with me," he told her. It didn't make any sense. None of it. Not to her, not to me. And why should it? It was all impossible. She knew it, I knew it. Shortly after I married her, she took a red crayon. It was the 60s. They didn't have marking pens in those days. And she closed her eyes and underlined a help wanted ad in the newspaper. She said that the crayon-marked ad was the job for me. And I went out and got it. That was how I became a seller of prefabricated housing solutions. We bought a house in the suburb. These were the days of June Cleaver of the Leave It to Beaver television series. Housewives wore high heels in those days. Carolina insisted on floral patterned wallpaper in every room. She liked to watch TV without looking at it by resting her head on top of the set. She believed that she could better pick up the psychic energies of actors that way. I was traveling all of the time, selling prefabricated housing solutions in places like Chicago, Detroit, Houston, and Orlando. I sometimes even went overseas, though Hong Kong and Bangkok didn't quite pan out. Carolina talked to me regularly on the phone. Housewives wore dresses back in the 1960s. Women's lives were the subjects of books like The Valley of the Dolls, The Feminine Mystique, and Sex and the Single Girl. Housewives lived in perfect homes because they made them perfect. Alienation, feminism, and the atomic bomb were things that people talked about. One of the prefabricated housing solutions that I presented to my clients was a home with a bomb shelter. With the invention of canned goods, refrigerators, washing machines, and frozen dinners, women were free to watch TV and to dream. Carolina was intensely interested in President Kennedy's plan to send a spaceship to the moon, and she dreamed of space flight. Other housewives, at least according to the stories at the time, became involved in booze and Valium. Carolina tended to her flower garden. She loved plants. She told me that plants had jumping genes, which could move to different locations on a chromosome and even to other chromosomes entirely. Plants, she said, did not need to have sex to evolve. She said that plants were the key to keeping our planet alive. I won't bore you with the details of our breakup. We were separated from each other for long periods of time. I was on the road selling prefabricated housing solutions. She was at our suburban cottage, channeling the psyches of actors on TV, dreaming of spaceflight and gardening indoors and out back. I accused her of infidelity. "Our psychic bond is broken," she said. "You don't trust me anymore." She didn't even ask me about my facts, about the evidence that I had against her. To her, it was all immaterial. I was flabbergasted. "I am going home to Zanuck." It was the first time that I had heard the name Zanuck since I first met her, though I did casually bring up the Ring of Fire incident from time to time. "I will be traveling at near the speed of light for about 50 years. When I return and see you, you will be on your deathbed, and I will still look young." Well, it's about 50 years later now, and I'm old, much older than I look. About the only impossible event that I experienced in my life, which I cannot explain, is my lovely wife Carolina's talk about jumping genes. You see, it is now known that plants really do have jumping genes. Except science had not yet discovered them when Carolina talked about them to me. And this I cannot even begin to explain. I hope that when I am on my deathbed, that she will come and see me, and that she will be young and beautiful still. I hope that we will be there for each other, and there will be nothing that we need to explain. I'd like to get a little personal and tell you about one of the important characters in my own life. As you know, I used to be a Hollywood actor. I did a commercial and made a couple of cameo appearances on a pilot TV show that never actually aired. You gotta have talent to have a career like I had, real talent. And it also helps to be lucky and to know somebody. The guy I knew was my Uncle Freddie. Reddy Freddy, they used to call him. He was a real card, a cut-up, always whooping it up, having a good time. He liked to hang around with big shots with single-syllable names, people who called themselves Art and Mick and Scooch. He was my connection, the guy who got me my commercial and my role as Charlie, the flapjack flipper, in an ill-fated pilot for a series called Fry Cooks. Uncle Freddie knew in his heart that he was a no-talent bum, and yet he had made it. He was a mover and a shaker, a man who could get things done. I always had the feeling when I was with Uncle Freddie that he had a sort of sixth sense for what was possible. Other people looked to the past in order to look to the future, but Reddy Freddy was different. He believed in the power of luck and good fortune. He confided in me one time that he had an idea for a book, a semi-autobiographical how-to human potential blockbuster that he was going to call The Power of a Smile. "When are you going to write it?" I asked him. "What? Me write a book? "Are you kidding? I'm going to get a ghostwriter." So far as I know, Uncle Freddie never did write his book. And now he's too old to even remember what he wanted to say. He's in an old folks' home. His sixth sense is gone, and he mumbles and drools a lot. I went to visit him the last time I was in California. Man, I sure could use a drink. I'll tell you, it sure is something. More than you can imagine. Yes, it is. I can't believe it sometimes. I must be the luckiest guy in the world. A pretty young nurse stuck her head into Uncle Freddie's room, saw that I was there, then left us alone. Uncle Freddie looked at me seriously. "Women are beautiful, beautiful and nuts. You give a woman what she wants, and she's not happy. Then you turn around, and suddenly she's happy, even though she didn't get what she wants." That doesn't just go for women. That sounds like the way it is for pretty much everybody. You are right as rain, my friend, whoever you are, right as rain. I like women who dress up like Santa Claus, tall women with red boots and furry caps who wear bells that jingle when they walk. But it isn't easy finding a woman like that, especially when you're a factory representative, a salesman. Women like that go for lawyers and gynecologists and football coaches, or at least that's how it is in the Santa chick porno flicks. If I was going to find a Santa Claus girlfriend, I would have to convert her, get her while she was still young and innocent, seduce her into falling in love with me, then talk her into giving me a show, into wearing some of the sexy Santa lingerie that I use to dress up the mannequin I keep in my closet. So that was my problem. I didn't know any innocent girls. And when I imagined my collection of lingerie on a woman other than a mannequin, I could only think of my neighbor, Charlotte, who was an exotic dancer. So I went with my imagination and told Charlotte about my plan. Asked her if she had any ideas about where I might find an innocent girl that I could seduce. "You have a collection of sexy Santa Claus outfits?" "Yes, I do. A very good collection. The best. I bought a lot of it in Las Vegas, some while I was in Paris. Most of it I ordered online. It's good stuff. The best." Charlotte took me to this place called The Dungeon. She put on one of my sexy Santa outfits and talked me into wearing handcuffs and leg irons that were fastened to the wall. She put on a blonde wig and danced to the music with the lights changing colors. Then this guy, Chuck, came in, wearing a Santa Claus outfit and dancing around. The next thing I knew, they were doing terrible things to my body, things that made me wince and speak in a high voice and caused me to chafe and to walk funny. I kind of felt ashamed about what had happened, and I avoided Charlotte for a long time after that. When I did bump into her again in the hallway of my apartment complex, I asked her if she would give me back my lingerie. She told me that first I would have to go back with her to the dungeon. I'd like to tell you about a whirlwind trip across 2 continents and an ocean that I once took, a couple of months after my divorce, shortly after the company I worked for downsized, and I lost my job as a salesman. I was at a coffee shop, standing at the coffee bar, leaning on the glass counter over baked goods and other a la carte items. As the barista made a foamy cappuccino for the customer ahead of me, I looked at the woman who had just come up to the counter beside me. She smiled invitingly. I looked away, then looked back. "Would you buy me a cookie?" she asked. She was good looking. She glowed with a prettiness that was made all the more pretty by the way I looked at her. When the barista asked me what I wanted, I ordered a no-nonsense cup of Colombian with room for cream and a cookie for the lady. "What would you like to drink?" I asked her. "A Ben Diaz with extra foam," she replied, addressing the barista. We sat at a table, she with her Ben Diaz and her cookie, me with my coffee. I was in my mid-30s then, neatly dressed, newly laid off from my job. She was much younger. "The key to life," she told me, "is to forget everything you do not know, wipe it completely out of your mind, then go obliviously into the darkness, confident that it will all work out." The next thing I knew, we were in Las Vegas. I'd made the mistake of telling her about my severance pay and the money I'd saved up. Still, at the time, it didn't seem like a mistake. Everything was great. I made money at the roulette wheel and from the slot machines too. I found out very quickly that she was expensive to keep happy. But I also found ways to keep the cost down. She didn't mind dining out at fast food restaurants, for example. It was the crowded nightclubs and the packed casinos that cost so much. Before long, we were at the airport, and then we touched down in London. I saw those double-decker buses and the giant clock called Big Ben. I had a passport from my overseas sales trip I had made, and I found out very quickly that she was a woman who knew how to get things done. She had booked everything from her cell phone with my credit card. We saw the Grand Canal of Venice, with its gondolas and its Renaissance buildings. We stopped in Milan to go shopping and to buy ourselves Big Macs. Every night we slept in a different hotel room, she in the one bed and I in the other. She knew how to treat me in public. She knew how to wrap her arm around mine, how to lean in against me, how to brush her face up against mine and to whisper into my ear. She was a lover of crowds. She liked dynamic places and to be at the center of the action. When I was with her in a crowd, I felt special. I felt like I sometimes do on stage, as though all eyes were watching, like I was at the center of it all. We went to a soccer match at an international tournament in Porto, Portugal, saw people whose faces were made up with various colors of grease paint and who were waving various European flags. When we returned home, 7 days after I left, she left me, probably for some other guy who would buy her a cookie. I had spent my severance pay and my savings, and my credit card had acquired a mountain of debt. No job, no money, no wife, and now no girlfriend. Was it all worth it? No way. I'm not that big of a fool. Of course I regret those 7 days, but would I do it all over again if I was lonely and saddened by recent events? If I was once again struck by hope and love and a beautiful woman's charm? This I cannot say. In all honesty, I do not know. Who were those ancient wise people who said, "Know thyself"? Who was that philosopher who said, "An unexamined life is not worth living"? Sometimes it is time to be a leaf blowing in the wind. Sometimes it is time to go obliviously into the darkness, confident that it will all work out. I'd like to get a little personal and show you what I envision for my own future. You're not going to believe this, but I think that someday I will actually give up trying to be an actor. I will start a new career as an animal fashions consultant. Sad but true, but also good. Instead of being a wannabe, I'll be a somebody. I'll sell out, compromise my dreams for cash. I will dress up people's dogs and cats, even their goldfish, make them look like the darling little people that their owners think they are. I'll make millions. Millions, I tell you. I'll be flooded with money, so much money that I won't be able to spend it all. Since medicine will have advanced, I'll be able to buy back my youthfulness. No, I won't be that young. Yes, that's more like it. That's what I'll look like. I'll go back to my body that I had in my Hollywood days and live like I'm a young man again. The money will keep pouring in, and then I'll decide to become the one thing that I've always dreamed of being, but could never imagine I could truly be. I will become a lesbian. I'll try on different lesbian faces, facelift after facelift. I'll act out different lesbian personalities, looking for my true identity. I'll wander the beaches of the world, searching for my soulmate, a lesbian who can love me for who I really am. Eventually, though, I will tire of the change of faces and the change of places. I will have my final facelift. I'll go back to my Hollywood days. I will write a script, the story of my life. Ivan Taprod, lesbian actor wannabe. I'll watch old commercials of myself on a retro TV. I will come to understand that I'm just me, and that's just what I'm stuck with. The money will keep coming in, but I'll grow old and weary. I will keep watching the old commercials of myself, and finally, at long last, I will die. Not when the good Lord comes to take me, but in my own time, when I don't give a damn anymore. Anyway, that's enough of me for now. Let's get on with the show.